How did the city of Cape Town cope with the recent combination of heavy storms and devastating fires? How long is it likely to take to repair damaged municipal infrastructure? And how is the city of Cape Town helping those who have been left homeless? And to what extent have bad weather conditions impacted the rollout of relief aid? What time is it? It's question time. Khotsong and welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Sedu. Mop-up operations are underway in the Western Cape following the raging fires that hit some parts of the province last week. 11 people are reported to have lost their lives as a result of the devastating flames. Knysna, Plettenberg Bay, George and nearby towns were heavily battered by the flames, which were aggravated by the strong gale-force winds. The fires also hit some parts of the Eastern Cape province. While the fires have been contained, firefighters remain on high alert in order to prevent any possible flare-ups. Several businesses, members of the public and rescue agencies, including Gift of the Givers, have been hard at work to provide relief aid to affected individuals and communities. But have the authorities already determined the actual cause of these fires? We are live, and if you can call us and you've used the number to dial is 089-1104210. Our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. My guest today, Ahmed Ban, is from the Gift of the Givers, and joining us from our Sea Point studio, Alderman J.P. Smith is a member of the mayoral committee responsible for safety and social services, that is at the city of Cape Town. And joining us on the line is Clinton Manuel, who is the chief fire officer of the Knysna Fire Department, and we welcome all of you gentlemen. We welcome you to the show.
Thank you.
But before we continue, we woke up to the news today that another outstanding talent from the South African entertainment industry, Christopher Kubek, otherwise known as Gunman, departed this world. From Question Time, we send our condolences to not only his family, friends, and his fans. Gunman, as he was popularly known, really endeared himself in the hearts and minds of many during his lifetime in the entertainment industry. So, R.I.P. Mvana, hamba kahle makanza. Gentlemen, let me welcome you once again indeed. But let me start with the Chief Fire Officer in Knysna, perhaps just to give us the latest. Have you been able to contain the fires? Is everything back to normal now?
Even the other guests and your listeners, we've to a large degree contained this fire today. Yesterday and today the weather was very favorable for us. So we've put a lot of guys out on the line there. We put all our resources, all our efforts into it to contain this fire. So yeah, we've got this fire contained at this stage.
And what is the casualties list?
I didn't get that, Mpho.
The casualties that you have at least accounted for, how many people are we talking about here?
Mpho, sadly, 7 people lost their lives in this fire as a direct result of this fire. 5 of them were civilians and 2 of them were volunteers who were helping to fight this fire. So sadly, 7 people as a direct result of this fire lost their lives. And
have you been able to quantify the damage so far?
We are in the process. We've got in the Knysna area alone about 14,000 hectares of this fire. And you can add to that probably about another 12,000 hectares on the Plettenberg Bay side. We established a unified command where from both municipalities, from Knysna and Pito, where the situation was actually from the command post in Knysna. In terms of structural losses, we are in the process of documenting all the losses. We took a flight today and taking aerial photographs of all the areas where ground crews will go in. And then from there, assessors will determine more or less the accurate financial losses or property losses as we go along.
Now, finally, Clinton, do you know or have any idea as to where did this fire start, how and who was responsible?
At this stage, we do not know who was responsible or how the fire started. What I do know is where the fire started. And one of the purposes of doing a reconnaissance flight was to determine the burn pattern, and we can accurately say that this fire started in an area called Elandskraal. But that's what we see from the air. So we still need to get on the ground. And the area is also a little bit inaccessible, so we need to get on the ground and determine and do an investigation as to what started the fire. But we do know where the fire originated from.
Clinton Manuel, thank you very much for giving us that update. MMC, clearly, Knysna, all the areas that were affected by the fire are tourism hubs. It should have been affected inevitably.
You had the consequences of a protracted period of dry summer with strong wind, continuous strong wind over the last couple of years, dry vegetation, and then if you have some purposeful or negligent fires, then I'm afraid it is a recipe for disaster. With winds of the kind of strength that Clinton and them were facing in Knysna, it's not surprising that the fire managed to destroy that much vegetation and that many homes. That kind of fire is next to unstoppable unless you corner it with fire breaks and roads. Extremely difficult, and even a large roadways present no obstacle. The video footage in Cape Town of the fire climbing over Oudtshoornweg is something to behold, and you can't imagine the level of horror that the fire imposes, and the incredible sight of seeing a fireman stand on top of the fire engine, hosing down, spraying a fire, but the flames are double as high as the guy on top of the fire engine. You've got a 15, 20 meter tall flame bearing down on you. The circumstances are just horrendous, and a lot of it has got to do with strong wind.
So how has tourism been affected?
Well, Knysna is bearing a very bad brunt. In Cape Town, we were very fortunate with the last South Peninsula fire. The big metros have substantial resources. The small rural municipalities like Knysna, they struggle. I mean, they're very difficult for a small rural municipality to have a meaningful crew. They're reliant on aid and support. And occasionally we're reliant on aid from them, like with our big South Peninsula fire a couple of years ago. In this case, it was us who sent 2 crews down to Knysna. Clinton Manuel is a former senior official in our city, so we're only too proud to be able to go and assist him. And then we aided with some resources, some donations and collections that we did in Cape Town that DHL kindly took down to Knysna. But in Cape Town, the tourism industry not much affected, except for the 2 days last week and this last weekend, when we had stormy weather, and I don't imagine much outdoor activity or pleasure cruises or much other tourist activities happened.
Well, I mean, you must be commended for the response, really, but I couldn't help but also notice what was being said on Twitter and Facebook and other social medias, where people were saying, white people's properties are under threat. So the amount of response also tells you that Abelungu are in danger now. There's free flights for firefighters who want to volunteer to go there. But what happens whenever this Mikuku and informal settlements are in fire? We never see this kind of reaction.
That's a disgusting line of argument, Mpo. And I mean, can I say you're the biggest culprit of the problem? Because the media choose to highlight certain fires and put an extensive amount of focus on them, but the same media don't choose to come and highlight the fires in informal settlements. And I've often gone out with fire to these fires. You will never see a camera around. So what gets media coverage is a selection made by the broadcast and print media, not government. In terms of the dynamics around the total disaster relief issue, that mainly stems from the fact that the one is a multi-day event and the other one is a single-day event. Fires within the city, within informal settlements, happen within an hour or two and they're done. Where they become the subject of multi-day coverage, they become massive media issues and huge resources go into them. And I'll remind you that Cape Town is still the only metropolitan city in South Africa that hands out starter kits, relief kits, and does humanitarian relief to the extent that Cape Town does. No other metro does that. So we are extremely forthcoming with humanitarian relief when it comes to vulnerable people in informal settlements. But when an event spans over multiple days, it garners a great deal more attention than an event that's over in an hour before the media can effectively cover it. The exceptions are large fires in Masiphumelele and Imizama Yetu, for instance, which had repeated flare-ups and where the disaster relief efforts carried over a long period. And I would suggest to you that nowhere in the history of Cape Town have we put as much effort into fire relief as we are doing for the residents of IY. So the racist arguments that are propelled by people on social media are disgusting because the city did not make any meaningful effort to help private residents around Constantia and otherwise whose homes were affected by fires in the South Peninsula fire, whereas an incredible amount of resources have gone into Masiphumelele and Imizama Yetu.
Okay. Gift of the givers. Well, what is your role here? How have you been participating, perhaps to ensure that there's relief? People have lost everything.
Yeah, I think when going out there and seeing the extent of the damage and the assessments, you actually realized people have lost everything. They've been basically have walked out there with just the clothes and items they could grab, and that's it in the end. It's going to take a lot of time to rebuild. What we did is we visited affected areas. We were anyway sending a truckload to Western Cape to assist with the storms, but we rediverted it through to Knysna because we've seen the extent of the fire. From there, doing assessments, going around, we started distribution, getting humanitarian aid, like an acute phase first. So that would be your immediate things like blankets, tents, shelter for the people and food. From there, we started looking at our different phases, bringing in a medical aspect to help and assist the medical needs in the area. You must know you have people who are affected acutely and then chronically, because then the Knysna hospital also was evacuated and closed down. So they needed also extra support there as well. Then also the other phase is you have a lot of the people whose houses have burned down in that. You have laborers, domestic workers that can't go back to work now because for who they were working, or the factories have been burnt, or the properties they were working have been burnt, they also get now affected. Okay. So we started assisting them in also getting aid out to them in that way. We also looked after the animal shelters because of the devastation that occurred in and around Knysna.
Okay. What do you prioritize there? Do you prioritize the little puppies or?
We prioritized all, so we looked at from the little puppies to the cats to everything that's available.
All right, no, that's fine. It's interesting that you mentioned domestic workers as well. We hope they're not going to be fired for not having pitched for work where there was actually nothing. The number to dial 089-110-4210. We're taking a quick break. When we return, we continue this discussion. Please don't go away.
If we can join our hands together against the ills of our society, we can build a better nation. One youth, one South Africa.
Flying fish is different from other beers, with olive bitterness brewed out and delicious flavors brewed in. See for yourself. For easy flavor, some refreshment, taste it for yourself. Go on, add some flavor.
If we can join our hands together against the ills of our society, we can build a better nation. One youth, one South Africa.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. I guess today Ahmed Ban, he's from the Gift of the Givers, and joining us from our Sea Point studio is the MMC for Safety and Social Services there, Alderman JP Smith, and represents the city of Cape Town. Good news, you are in KZN. Welcome.
Yes, how are you, Mpo?
Good
right, man.
Yeah.
You know me. No, man, the thing which was happening there, it was very terrible.
Yes.
It's very bad news that was happening there
Yes.
to anyone. So it's unacceptable. But I was amazing about the parliamentary today, as I've been looking at them today. They each is only even one of them. They never touched off that situation. It seems that people, they only care about fake politics, not about the people.
Yeah, you have brought another element there. Good news.
That's the thing.
Okay,
Thank you.
good news. Thank you very much. MMC, well, I don't know. We obviously can't generalize on what good news has just said, but this is one, I mean, he's bringing in an element which says, you know what, human lives and property were destroyed here, you know, but nothing was said today in Parliament. Yes, I understand you are operating at local government level, but I guess this is an indictment on politicians to say, do not just be concerned and worried about things that perhaps would be, as he calls it, fake news, but news that makes headlines there and then, whilst there's this type of scenario that unfolded in Knysna. Your take?
Paul, you can't give me an easier invitation to politicking, but I'll resist the temptation and tell you, perhaps it's about the distance from government to the problem. And I think at the moment, national government is preoccupied with its own problems, which sadly is not that of the rest of South Africa. But the issue is that local government doesn't get to evade these matters. This is very serious for us. These are roads and schools and buildings, toilet blocks, essential electrical infrastructure, that are damaged that we need to repair, so we don't get to evade the issue. I think sometimes it frustrates us because we struggle like we did with both the drought and the Imizama Yetu fire to get the disaster declaration done, and it ends up being a slow and time-consuming affair during which the local government resources are stretched to breaking point. You know, we operate on tight budgets, and our budgets are clearly spoken for. We don't have large contingency funds to deal with unexpected disasters. And we're not allowed to keep, in fact, such contingency funds. We have to get a disaster declared. And that means the National Department for Disaster Management has to come down and do an assessment. I think we all wish these would happen more speedily and more quickly.
Okay.
But as in the case of Imizama Yetu, we were able to have a disaster declaration, and Knysna and the region there certainly is in need of it, because the damages there is going to far exceed what a local authority can do, especially a rural local authority, because their resources are really constrained.
What is required from gift of the giver's side?
What we require is donations. I mean, there's been a lot of calls that social media again, donations coming in, not coming in, going to this one, going to that one, you know. What we require is, I mean, I must say, through what our political climate it is at the moment, I was amazed that people from all religions, all different creeds, everyone working together at our logistics center, bringing in aid, perishable stuff, blankets, clothing from the whole of South Africa. But the amazing thing, like I say, it came from everyone. The local man walking down the street, the public came in, he brought his cane, he brought it in. The corporate, yes, they send their trucks. This one brought bread, this one brought dog food. So a lot of people have been sending a lot of aid through to us. We're going to have a continuation of the aid, meaning especially food stuff, blankets, mattresses. Those are things we're going to require, because the houses that have been burned down, you're going to have to continue assisting the people with the aid and the people in need, because you can't build everything overnight. Like my colleague has said, I mean, the infrastructure has been damaged. It's a lot of things to go in to get it back to where it was, you know.
MMC, one of the challenges that emerged yesterday when a colleague of mine was reading out the numbers, the account numbers which those who want to contribute money can use, is the amount of fraud which ordinarily just rock up, in the middle of these tragedies that we would be dealing with. some accounts have been opened, in very suspicious accounts. Some are indeed fraudulent. How do we deal with this, whereby much desired resources are not ending up in in the wrong accounts or wrong hands, in as much as, it's happening even in other normal processes. But in this case, what would you advise?
It's disgraceful that people would seek to capitalize off the misery of others like this, and would steal money that is intended for beneficiaries who are really in a difficult situation. So it's unforgivable. I think the safest bet is to concentrate on humanitarian relief efforts that are sanctioned. So start with the ones involving the actual city, the municipalities in Knysna, contact their disaster management services and work through their official disaster management channels. Contact the city. Cape Town has 4 drop-off points, and DHL and other courier companies are taking those resources down to Knysna, so we will continue to keep those points open, the fire stations, but specifically Ruland Street, Strand Street, Goodwood and Fishhook, where people can drop resources if they want to make donations to people in Knysna. And it's admirable that even after we were hit by a pretty big storm ourselves, the very next day people were willing to put their hands in their pockets and help residents in Knysna. Work with legitimate and recognized NGOs and humanitarian relief agencies like Salvation Army, like International Red Cross, like Mustadafin, like Gift to the Givers. Work with these. In Cape Town, we have a select set of partners that we have a formal agreement with, and where these things are all audited, and we make sure that none of the materials go missing.
Okay.
Otherwise, the people will lose all trust in these processes. And this is something where people want to know that this donation they've made has gotten to the right source.
I know these are sometimes natural disasters, but how prepared are you to deal with this? Because really you seem to be prone to this.
I think, for those climate change deniers out there, and there's a certain country who recently withdrew from a climate accord.
It's the US.
Climate change is real. We are feeling it. We're seeing it. And these kind of extreme weather is going to become more prevalent. We're all affected by a drought. We've got these extreme storms. We've got ferocious wind driving big fires. So we're having to deal with the reality of that. And I would suggest that our disaster management service and our fire services in the last 2 major incidents we've had have acquitted themselves very well. I would like to see an external assessment, but if I were permitted a brief self-congratulatory comment, I would suggest we passed with flying colours, and so did people on social media and otherwise who were part of this, who used or contacted the Disaster Operations Centre and who experienced the manner in which the Cape Town Disaster Management Centre and the staff, our fire and rescue staff and the various other enforcement departments and partners like SAPS and others all work together in a well-coordinated effort to address the various issues. Okay. The only backlog that we're still dealing with are the electricity connections, which were extensive. There were huge numbers of calls that came in. They were clocking in excess of 150 calls a minute at one point because of electrical wires down. And by yesterday, they'd almost finished the backlog on all of those. Okay. So I think we responded well. People who were affected and left homeless have been assisted. They got immediate assistance of being moved into city facilities with humanitarian aid, baby packs, food, clothing, bedding, and by now have all been assisted with a home. As I said, Cape Town provides starter kits for people who lose homes so that they can immediately get back into some kind of accommodation.
What do you need now?
Currently, what we still need is a lot of food items we'll still require. Like I say, for hampers.
Non-perishable.
Yeah, non-perishable. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have been sending all, like agencies through DHL, people have been collecting, sending through to all the different centres, us being one of those centres in Knysna. We're going to need quite a bit of food, just basically bulk food, so we can make hampers. Because with us also, we're not just concentrating on Knysna. Mm-hmm. We've sent assessment teams out to Plettenberg Bay. We're assisting George, and we're assisting as far as PE. So from Knysna, where our logistics center is, our trucks are traveling to all those distribution points. Just to add also, is what we're doing as the NGO is, before we go into any of these points or any housing where we're assisting, our teams are going, so it's the right items are going to the right recipients, if I can put it in the end of the day, man, which is very important to do that as well.
Well, we wish you all the best, and MMC, indeed, we wish you all the best as well. And yeah, that was question time for today. A big thank you to my guest and to you for watching the show. Continue to assist where you are able. From me and the rest of the crew, have yourself a wonderful time. Aiwa Khotso.